Folks, some shots have been fired from the West Coast in California specifically. That's right. Phil Danault calls out Montreal and basically saying that he's loving life. He's enjoying California. They use a golf cart for their baby on the weekends. It's a tranquil place. He's having a pleasant time, and he feels like he's in Hawaii. It's very special to him and his family. And so this is a man that has opted no longer to be in 30 feet snow at minus 35 weather. And this is still construction, nonstop construction, obviously run by the mafiosi. And we still have no answers here in Montreal. Instead, he goes to the bright lights, the hot weather, the palm trees, where all the stars lay, where he can live a tranquil life. No pizza for Phil Danault, not anymore, but instead burritos. All of this because of one single man, Marc Bergevin, who ironically joins him in LA. But that's not the point of today's video. This is all an interview from TVA where Phil Danault basically talks about his time in Montreal and how he felt somewhat slighted. These are the shots that have been fired. So let's start there. Justin, we should just mention we're the No Respect Podcast. Justin Mackey, liking, subscribing, all of those things, fantastic. But if not, hey, we get it. You've got a life. Justin, Phil Danault in a Montreal Canadiens sweater. Are you sad to have seen him go? What do you think about his time and now his new uniform in LA and his performance in that uniform?
I mean, I was definitely sad to see him go. I think he was monumental for our playoff run there. I think he was one of the best players, if not the best forward, at least defensively. And I mean, that was the problem with his game. He didn't have the offensive game with Montreal. That could have been because of our system. It could have been because of him not performing as well. But at the end of the day, that's what the reality is. And now in LA, he's a 30 goal scorer out of nowhere, it seems. So, I mean, I'm happy for him, but I wish he was still a Canadian for sure.
Yeah, it's and that's what he kind of describes in this interview from TVA, and we want to tackle the question of what does a Montreal Canadiens team look like with the Phil Danault today, and is it the right thing? Is it did it pan out for both sides? Because Phil Danault talks about the fact that it was really weighing on him that season that they were trying to get into the negotiations with Marc Bergevin, who's a hard negotiator. Guy's got pipes. Guy's jacked as all hell. And when it comes to negotiations, the biceps were in full force, and this guy was not budging. And for Phil Danault, he said that he knew from the get-go that this was his last season. He says it up front, and he says that weighed on him until he made it to the playoffs and let go and said, "Let me live in the moment." And that's where he was playing some of the best hockey of his life, and that led us to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Tampa Bay Lightning. But a part of that discussion is the fact that he was not well exploited, and one of the major reason that he left for LA is the fact that he believed in himself. He wanted to be given the opportunity not just to take defensive faceoffs. Yes, he's good at that, but he knew he had more in the tank. So this is where he goes to LA, he gets an opportunity to do so with an Anse Kopitar that can help him with the defensive faceoffs, but gives him the flexibility not just to do that, and he scores 30 goals. So, Justin, let's get into the actual big question here is that Phil Danault, does he have a valid point in saying that he wasn't well exploited with the Montreal Canadiens?
I mean, he definitely had the more defensive role. I think it's on both of them. I think it's on maybe the Habs that used him too much defensively, but I think it was a consequence of him first of all being so good defensively, and second of all, not being able to produce offensively as much in our system. So I mean, it's kind of both sides are a bit right in this case, but obviously Phil Danault had that other gear and had that offensive game that I guess just didn't fit the Habs system, or they didn't allow him to exploit that.
The truth is that when I look at the LA team, they were able to give him that opportunity. For Montreal back in the day, where they're coming off a run of the Stanley Cup or at least chasing, the opportunity to make it to the playoffs, I think the foundational pieces or the way that the team is constructed with a Carey Price in nets. It's a somewhat similar maybe with a Jonathan Quick, but the reality is that at the $10.5 million, some of the cap structure, the way the team was built is that it was defense first. And we're talking about the greatest defensive player probably in the league, one of at least, like with the Patrice Bergerons. And the offensive side, there was no evidence for Montreal to be able to take that gamble on Phil Danault. The LA Kings saw it and said, screw it. We'll go a bit higher. We're not in cap hell. We can do this and we can take the gamble, and it's paid off dividends for obviously Phil Danault, but also the LA Kings that get themselves a great two-way player that can now score 30 goals. And two things can be right at the same time is that Montreal, with hindsight, yes, it was probably a mistake, but the evidence wasn't there. And Phil Danault was right to leave. And I guess that leaves us to the last question of this video is this a mistake? And do you think that the new ownership, if we go to the last slide, I've got a little image for them back at home. It's the last one here. There we go. There they are. Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes. Do you think that they would have made the effort to keep Phil Danault on this team? And would you have wanted them to?
I mean, it's really hard to say, but I think Bergevin, knowing what he knew at the time, maybe did the right thing because it's really hard because Phil Danault had like 4 goals during the regular season, and to me that doesn't necessarily warrant a big contract. So it's really tough to say if these two would have given him the contract and would have kept him. But at the end of the day, I think Bergevin, with what he knew at the time, did the right thing.
Bold. Even with hindsight, I like that answer.
Well, I'm saying
I
without
will.
hindsight. I'm saying at the time, I think he
Yeah,
did
I
the right
know,
thing.
but that's it. But like with hindsight, to the fact that you still go back and say that there was no hindsight, that I like. Now, what I will say is that the romantic in me would have loved to have Artigatsi, Victoriaville, Quebec, stay here for the rest of his career. Now, Phil Danault, was he not properly exploited? Maybe. Maybe he needed some more talented wingers to be fully exploited. I think at the end of the day, this is just the way that the cards needed to fall. Wouldn't have necessarily gotten a Slavkovsky. Obviously, it's to be seen if he pans out. But the whole kind of rebuild that this organization probably needed from top to bottom, maybe that doesn't happen if Phil Danault stays with the Montreal Canadiens. And does that make it worse? Do we finally win a cup in the next 2 years if Phil Danault stays? Who knows? We don't have that answer. But you let us know back at home what you think about Phil Danault staying with the Montreal Canadiens. Was it a mistake? Would you have loved to keep him? Is he right in this TVA interview to have said what he said? And I think that about does it for our video today, Justin. Any last comments on Phil Danault?
No, I agree with everything you said. I would have loved to keep him. He was like one of my favorite players when he was on the Habs, and yeah, I'm happy for him at least. But yeah,
Yeah.
would have loved to keep him.
On t'aime, Phil. And that's it for us, the No Respect Podcast. Again, liking, subscribing goes a long way for the channel. But we shall see you in the next one. Go Habs, go. It's going to be a long season, baby. Let's get it.